Hello and welcome to the Drawing Room Experts. This is Zaib, um, recording another podcast in the new year. So, if you're listening to me for the first time or it's been a while, Happy New Year. Um, for those who've been listening to me ever since I started this, I think one of the first motivations of getting this podcast off the ground was to talk about some of my political opinions, and um, there's obviously uh, been the case that has all obviously been the case since I started this, and I think my first episode was a purely political episode around about the time when uh, um, we were finishing a year um, of Imran Khan's government in Pakistan, and me and the guys kind of like went through what we felt about the year and where we see it going. And needless to say, none of us kind of predicted what's going to happen. And then on and off, I did a lot of episodes on Imran Khan specifically and Pakistani politics generally. And um, I think the last politic pos- political Pakistani specific political podcast that I did was, I think, a year ago or somewhere around that time frame. And um, it's been a while since I did this, and it wasn't because I didn't have anything to say. I had a lot to say, and if anything, I think I have had the most to say ever on the political spectrum. But I kind of like separated myself from all of that, and the reason was that I just the a I guess to be very fair, the political landscape was changing drastically and a lot, and it didn't feel as if my words will stay true, ring through, um, for any more than a couple weeks, because the things were changing so fast. So that was one reason. The other reason was, I think, uh, the the debate and the conversation that was existing on Twitter or X, um, and otherwise was so tribal in nature. Uh, it just didn't feel like I wanted to insert myself into that conversation at the time, and um, I felt like, although I did have a lot to say, I just couldn't organize my thoughts to say it the way I wanted to say. And then additionally, I just felt like it was just too charged a topic for me to approach. Um, but I think I'm at a point now where I can haven't seen what's going on in the last couple of years in Pakistan. So whoever's listening right now, uh, if they want a little bit of a flag, or a heads up what's going to happen, we're going to talk about Pakistani politics specific, and some, obviously, some local politics. And by local, I mean United States. That's where I'm based in. So but the predominant theme would be in the context of Pakistani politics. But I think what would be a great um, place to start is just to acknowledge the fact that over the weekend was the four I would say 4-year anniversary of what took place at the Capitol Hill in Washington D.C. on January the 6th in 2020. And it was quite remarkable and quite unprecedented in the history of this country, and the history of the democracy that exists in the United States of America. And for the rest of the world, we were kind of like saying that welcome to, you know, stand in line. Is this your first time? All of those memes were going around. But, you know, and in the context, what I saw over the weekend was a lot of people using that as an example you know, uh, of a political point that they wanted to make about the happenings that took place a couple of years ago. Oh, actually, not even a couple of years. Last year on May the 9th. May has been a really fucked up month for for Pakistan. I mean, politically. I mean, there's so many weird things have happened. I'm remembering, um, I think a bunch of target killings that happened in May, if I'm not mistaken. I think um, a a prominent uh, religious scholar was brutally murdered. All those years back in 2002 or three or something like that, if I'm remembering correctly. Then May 12th, happened 2007 or something, um, and a couple more events. I'm sure I'm missing, but and then obviously the one that happened last year in Pakistan on May the 9th, in which widespread protests um, um, were were organized and um, they happened because the leader of the party, PTI, Pakistan Tehreek Insaf, Imran Khan, was arrested from the vicinity of the courts. And what happened? What happened after that was quite an episode in Pakistani history. But the reason why is I've been quiet for a year since, almost a year since that, or 9 months, whatever has gone past since 9th of May. And and generally on the happenings of Pakistani politics specifically have been quiet, is because it's just uh, it's just that I feel frustrated, if I'm being honest with you, and if I'm really opening my heart out here on my own podcast. I think the problem has been uh, the level of engagement that you see. And I'm not coming from a really high, you know h- trying to put myself on a high horse and saying that, oh, look at me, I'm so um, you know well read and organized in my thoughts, and and I only engage with a certain level of intellect. No, that's not what I'm trying to suggest here. But there has to be a starting point, right? A common ground hota hai, ek leveling. The word level playing field is overused in Pakistan politics these days, but I'm still going to use it. But एक starting point होता है जिसको आप कहते हैं कि यार ये at least यहाँ से हम start करेंगे, और जब कोई उसके नीचे से start करता है, like it starts from somewhere else. For example, if I'm engaging with, you know, uh, let's say if I'm engaging with a conspiracy theorist, और उसकी conspiracy theories पे मैं argue करूँ या उससे बात करूँ, if I engage करूँ उस पे, and then the first conspiracy theory that the person throws at me is that the earth is flat. So obviously you'll be like, really, is it worth my time in engaging with this level of you know uh, uh, back and forth? Is it worth it कि मैं अब इस पे बहस करूं कि earth flat है या नहीं है? It's not worth anyone's time, not even me. And my if even if you were in this position, you would be like, come on, really, you know. Uh, but so there has to be that, at least कि एक कॉमन, एक नॉर्मल, एक स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट ऐसा हो जिस पे हम सब कह सकें, "हाँ, चलो इतनी डिसेंसी तो हम दोनों में है कि हम मानते हैं कि अर्थ फ्लैट नहीं है, ठीक है ना?" एंड देन वी कैन टॉक अबाउट अदर थिंग्स, whether Jeffrey Epstein killed himself or not. But ये सब चीज़ें you you kind of look forward to when you're trying to argue or put your 2 cents on any subject. But I think when it comes to Pakistani politics, that's been lacking severely the last couple of years. Even before that, I'll be really honest. I think nuance, word nuance, you know, I would use it here. I think perfectly described what I'm trying to say. Nuance it completely misses. Is missed by a lot of the so-called, self-proclaimed analysts, um, pundits and whatever, people who claim to have a very, you know, uh, a focused opinion on happenings or consistent opinion on happenings in Pakistani politics. Um, if I want to engage with someone, the reason why I stay quiet is in certain, and I'm really proud of this. Me staying quiet, because the old me, a couple of years ago or a few years ago, would have been ridiculously engaging in some stupid arguments. But over the years, as I've grown older and hopefully wiser, I've learned that there has to be a one-on-one, on engagement. Like मुझे अगर uh, अपनी मेंटल कैपेसिटी को कहीं इन्वेस्ट करना है, अपने यू नो टाइम को या अपने ब्लड प्रेशर को अगर एक रिस्क पे रखना है, तो उसके लिए कोई एक मिनिमम स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट ज़रूर होना चाहिए, और वो मेरे ख्याल से is a consistency in principles. अगर आपके if I'm trying to debate with you, if I'm trying to engage with you, agar aapke principles are all over the place, then it means I'm never going to reach a point where I'm uh, comfortable in engaging with you. Because agar main aapse bolूं कि going back to the earth is flat example, you know agar aap earth is flat isliye keh rahe ho कि whatever you see is flat and therefore henceforth earth is flat, so that is using the principle कि whatever you see is actually the only truth. ठीक है, तो उस लिहाज से मैं बैठ के यहाँ बोलूँ कि यार मेरे सामने भी दरख्त हैं, तो पूरी दुनिया में हर जगह दरख्त हैं, पानी एग्जिस्ट नहीं करता क्योंकि आई एम नॉट सीइंग पानी राइट नाउ, सो देयरफॉर देयर इज नो सी, और उस पर फिर वो बंदा बोले नहीं 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 नहीं, ये नहीं होता, ये नहीं हो सकता, हम ये वाला प्रिंसिपल लाइक ये नहीं हम यूज़ कर सकते क्योंकि पानी एग्जिस्ट करता है, हमने देखा हुआ है। तो इट मीन्स आपका जो स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट था प्रिंसिपल का, जिसमें आपने एंगेजमेंट शुरू करी थी या डिबेट शुरू करी थी या आर्ग्यूमेंट शुरू किया था या कॉन्वर्जेशन शुरू करी थी, जिसमें आपने कहा था कि आई बिलीव द अर्थ इज फ्लैट बिकॉज whatever, I don't see any curvatures, right? तो I believe there's no water because I don't see any water. ठीक है, तो सेम प्रिंसिपल पे ये चीज़ भी अप्लाई होती है, लेकिन आप उस प्रिंसिपल को एक्सेप्ट नहीं करते, आप मूव कर देते तो किसी और, like the goal post is moved to another principle. तो उस सिचुएशन में even if I were to engage with someone, with a who's a hardliner, earth is earth is flat, believer, um I would still look for at least a consistent principle जिसको मैं आर्ग्यू कर सकूं, जिसको मैं लॉजिकली हैंडल कर सकूं, जिसको मैं ट्राइंग टू डिबंक कर सकूं अपने तरीके से। तो आई थिंक पाकिस्तानी पॉलिटिक्स के अंदर ये चीज़ एक और जो 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 कॉन्वर्जेशंस जो चल रही हैं इस वक्त, वो ये चीज़ एक एक और समझता हूँ बहुत बड़ी चीज़ है जिसका फुकदान है इस वक्त, और वो है कि एक कॉमन, एक मैं किसी से बात करूं, मुझे नहीं पता इसका प्रिंसिपल कब चेंज हो जाएगा। और इसका सबसे बड़ा एग्जांपल, आई थिंक इफ यू लुक अराउंड, people who were rightfully pro freedom of press, pro you know um, liberties or political liberties or whatever जो भी आप बोलें उसको, during 2018, 19, 20, 21, uh, वही सेम लोग अब are the proponents of curtailing such liberties and such freedoms. और ऐसे नहीं कि sticking to their own principles or they're trying to stretch it. No, they're blatantly shifted from 180 degree shift. तो वो चीज़ ज़्यादा मुझे फ्रस्ट्रेट करती है, और कि देयर इज़ नो प्रिंसिपल जिसको मैं कहूँ कि अच्छा यार, मैं अगर किसी एक कंजर्वेटिव इंसान से बात कर रहा हूँ, तो मुझे पता है कि उसकी बेसिस और उसकी थिंकिंग और उसका सोचने का तरीका एक कंजर्वेटिव अप्रोच से आएगा, एक राइट साइड ऑफ सेंटर आर्ग्यूमेंट होगा जिसको मैं एक तरीके से प्रीएम्प्ट कर सकूं, समझ सकूं, और फिर उसके हिसाब से उसको रिस्पॉन्ड कर सकूं। या अगर मैं किसी लिबरल से बात कर रहा हूँ या लेफ्टिस्ट से बात कर रहा हूँ, तो मुझे पता है यार इसके ये प्रिंसिपल्स होंगे। मसला पाकिस्तान पॉलिटिक्स में आता है कि कोई प्रिंसिपल्स का सेट स्टैंडर्ड्स नहीं है। अगर मैं किसी से बात करूंगा, दे कैन शिफ्ट फ्रॉम from left to right to center to fascism to um, uh, dictatorship, कुछ भी शुरू हो जाएगा। तो उससे फिर कोई कंक्लूजन नहीं है। एंड आई नो व्हाट आई एम साउंडिंग लाइक इज आई एम सजेस्टिंग कि यार हर इंसान एक बकेट में रखना चाहिए कि यार ये राइट होगा, ये लेफ्ट है, ये सेंटर है, ये लिबरल है, ये फैशिस्ट है, ये फलाना धमाका। ये बॉक्सेस में रखने का मैं भी अम, अ, इसके इसके नो आई एम नॉट फॉर दोज थिंग्स कि मैं किसी को बॉक्स में रखूँ या क्लासिफिकेशन क्रिएट करूँ किसी इंसान के पीछे, या कोई कोई अपने हिसाब से किसी को समझूं और फिर कहूँ कि यार आप इस बॉक्स में फॉल करते हो तो मैं आपको इस बॉक्स में रखूँगा। तो ये जो जो फिक्सेशन होती है, पिजन होल करना, ये मैं इसका बिल्कुल फॉर नहीं हूँ। बट जब आप किसी से बात करते हैं तो उसके एक सेट स्टैंडर्ड्स होंगे, यार ये इसकी वैल्यूज़ होंगी, तो हम उस वैल्यूज़ पे बात करेंगे। uh, जैसे कि मैं अगर मुझसे कोई बात करेगा तो आई ट्राई टू स्टे कंसिस्टेंट एज पॉसिबल, कि ताकि सामने वाले को ये मसला ना हो कि यार ये तुम पहले कुछ और बोल रहे थे, अब कुछ और बोल रहे हो, सेम प्रिंसिपल तुम्हारा अप्लाई नहीं हो रहा। सो आई थिंक सबसे बड़ा मसला यही है कि जो इस वक्त इंगेजमेंट है या जो लेवल ऑफ इंगेजमेंट है, इट्स एट एन ऑल टाइम लो। ये कहना भी एक समझ लो कि एक redundant, क्योंकि the lows are getting lower by the day and in the minute and the तो इसका कहने का भी कोई फायदा नहीं है कि the standards have never been lower. They will perhaps be lower by the time I release this episode. तो bad faith जो actors हैं on Twitter and social media generally, वो इतने vocal हैं कि उनमें जो सबसे बड़ी कमी मुझे लगती है, और द रीजन व्हाई आई कॉल देम बैड फेथ इज बिकॉज दे या तो विलिंगली या अनविलिंगली लैक नुआंस। इसमें कुछ नाम दिमाग में आते हैं। आई थिंक सर फहरिस्त रजा रूमी, I can't believe I'm saying this, but uh, and I don't like calling out and all of these things, but I'm just going to use that as an example because I've actually attended his an event when he was here in the Bay Area, um, and I found him to be a very level-headed, you know, a fair person. But you know, I don't think he has been completely fair. He's tried to be. I've seen certain angles and certain statement of his that have where I can see that he's trying to be fair with what has been happening with Imran Khan versus what has been happening with Nawaz Sharif and the likes before. And but either he's not trying too hard, or he knows that if he tries too hard, he will go into a box where he doesn't want to be. Whereas he would be somewhere where Jibran Nasir is, for example, who's I gotta say I've had massive disagreements with this guy on certain issues, and I'm happy to say I can still have that, but I completely agree with and I'm happy to see that he's been sticking to his principles, which has been stated since day one, ever since he entered the public forum as a public servant or an aspiring public servant. तो वो जो principles हैं, वो जो जो morals हैं, वो for the most part अभी तक वहीं खड़े हुए हैं। And I feel like ये bad faithism जो exist करता है, I don't know if that's a word, but uh, जो 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 prevalent है इस वक्त in the conversation when it comes to Pakistani politics is just too frustrating for me. और उसका सर फहरिस्त जो एक एग्जाम्पल, which is the topic of this episode, is the whole issue about January 6th, events of the January 6th and events of May 9th. कि ये देखो यार January 6th में जो हुआ, all of this, and look at how the American media has been covering it. Look at how um, the the planners and whoever did it, these people who marched down the Capitol and entered the building and did all of that, hooliganism, उनके साथ क्या स्टेट ने किस तरीके से डील किया, versus उसी चीज को प्रोजेक्ट करते हैं मे 9th के ऊपर और कहते हैं कि जो स्टार्टिंग में बहुत सारा जब सख्तियां आई थी और वो सब डंडेबाजी शुरू हुई थी, तो उसको जस्टिफाई करने के लिए उन्होंने ये बोला था. फिर जब for whatever reason, they themselves kind of like gave some breathing room because they were not looking to, again, Pakistan mein there's nothing that goes on because they want to do justice about it. It's all about blackmailing. तो जब उन्होंने देखा कि अच्छा we can break इमरान खान by blackmailing him and just like उसके बंदे तोड़ के ख़त्म करो, पार्टी ख़त्म कर दो, बिल्कुल like dissolve कर दो पार्टी को, तो they started giving giving some of these people a free hand and saying कि चलो यार तुम कुछ और पार्टी ज्वाइन कर लो, whatever, just disown इमरान खान, you're out. तो violators on January 6th or violators or quote unquote violators but protestors on May 9th को compare किया जाता है और कहता है कि देखो ये same एक cult following है, whatever. So एक तो ये cult क्या meaning, again nuance. इतना I'm I don't know if you notice, I'm working myself up just by talking about these. That's why I just don't talk about these things, but here we are. Cult, ये भी एक वर्ड है जो थ्रो अराउंड किया जाता है. फैशिज्म, fascist this, oh, he's a right winger, he's a Taliban इतना ये बड़े बड़े वर्ड्स हैं और इतना फ्रीली ओपनली इनको फेंका जाता है कि ये लो तुम फैशिस्ट, ओ ये लो तुम तालिबान के सिंपथाइजर, ओ ये लो तुम गवर्नमेंट यू नो यू नो गवर्नमेंट गिराने वाले या राइट विंगर्स और व्हाटएवर. और द बिगेस्ट प्रॉब्लम विद दैट इज कि इसमें अगेन गोइंग बैक टू द वर्ड नुआंस मिसिंग, कंप्लीटली मिसिंग. कल्ट एक जैसे वर्ड है कि यार ये कल्ट फॉलोइंग है पीटीआई की. और कल्ट फॉलोइंग की रीजन पूछी जाती है कि क्या मतलब भाई उनका लीडर जो बोल दे आप देखें उनके फॉलोअर्स कैसे आंखें बंद करके उसको एक्सेप्ट करते हैं. ठीक है, ठीक है. बट अगेन कॉन्टेक्स्ट एंड नुआंस मिसिंग एज यूजुअल. क्या पाकिस्तान में कोई ऐसा पॉलिटिशियन नहीं है जो कि फ्री ऑफ दिस कल्ट फॉलोइंग हो? आई मीन द होल भुट्टो regime, the whole Bhutto clan is a cult, अगर आपकी डेफिनेशन इस पे भी अप्लाई हो. कि एक मर्तबा बुलावल भुट्टो जरदारी या जरदारी ने उन्होंने कुछ बोल दिया तो दैट्स इट. यू कैन डिसएग्री विद इट ऑल यू वांट बट दैट्स व्हाट्स गोना हैपन. अगर आप कह रहे हो कि पार्टी में डिसेंट एग्जिस्ट नहीं करती, तो वो तो किसी और पार्टी में भी नहीं करती. जितनी उन पार्टीज में डिसेंट एग्जिस्ट करती है उतनी इसी पार्टी में भी, यानी पीटीआई में भी एग्जिस्ट करती है, पीएमएलएन में भी उतनी डिसेंट एग्जिस्ट करती है. आई मीन पीएमएलएन में is there anything like um a a decision being made, I mean, without the blessing of Nawaz Sharif and the Sharif family? No. तो क्या अब आप उसको कल्ट फॉलोइंग बोलेंगे? आई डोंट नो, मे बी यस. तो पाकिस्तान में तो दैट्स अगेन, अगर ये कोई और दुनिया होती है जिसमें आप कहते हैं कि इसमें कल्ट फॉलोइंग आ गई है, जैसे यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स के अंदर, व्हेन इट कम्स टू Donald Trump, you can argue that it is a cult following because of his followers literally like no other followers out there. Nobody followed Obama like that. Nobody follows Joe fucking Biden like that. There's no politician on the right that demands that sort of charisma that Donald Trump does. तो इस लैंडस्केप पे यस, इट मेक सेंस टू से यार ये कल्ट फॉलोइंग है क्योंकि तो उसकी किसी बात को चैलेंज ही नहीं करते. पाकिस्तानी लैंडस्केप में कौन फॉलोअर पीटीआई का या पीपीपी का या पीएमएलएन का या एमक्यूएम का बैक इन द डेज फॉलोअर है जो कि उनके लीडर्स की बात को ओपनली चैलेंज करे, नॉट चलो टीवी पे ना करे लेकिन यू नो ऑन द स्ट्रीट्स। गिव मी वन एग्जांपल जिसमें ऐसा हुआ हो, तो इट डजंट एग्जिस्ट। एक सोसाइटी डिफरेंट है ये। तो आप कल्ट का लफ्ज इस्तेमाल जो करते हो, इट मींस अगेन यू आर मिसिंग द फकिंग नुआंस अगेन। कोई नुआंस, कोई कॉन्टेक्स्ट, कोई थोड़ा सा एक अपनी मेहनत करनी पड़ती है समझ सोचने के लिए, थोड़ी जान लगानी पड़ती है, बट दे नीड बज़वर्ड्स, दे नीड टू थ्रो दीज बज़वर्ड्स आउट अगेन। the likes of Razarumi and others are have been capable of doing that. They've been doing that for a good part of these 2 3 years or whatever. Yeah, they've been throwing these words which have bigger meanings, and they may have ways to justify them. But again, it doesn't really fall, true if you spend a little bit more time thinking about these words. Um, Similar, इसका एक example ये January 6th और May 9th का है. 1659, right? So they say कि कैपिटल हिल में प्रोटेस्ट हुआ, वहाँ पर मार्चर्स आए, उन्होंने हला हड़ाउड़ी मचाई, घुस गए कैपिटल हिल के अंदर, तोड़ा तोड़ी मचाई, शीशा तोड़े, ये किया वो किया, वायलेंस, पॉलिटिकल वायलेंस इस्तेमाल किया। और क्यों? क्योंकि डोनाल्ड ट्रंप ने कहा था। तो देखो ये कल्ट फॉलोइंग है, ये इस तरह के कल्टिस्ट लोग हैं। पाकिस्तान में क्या हुआ? पाकिस्तान में क्या हुआ कि उनके लीडर को, इमरान खान को अरेस्ट किया गया, तो उसके फॉलोअर्स निकल आए, तोड़ा तोड़ी मचाई, हलाउड़ी मचाई, ये कर दिया। इस एग्जाम्पल में January 6th में भी स्टेट एसेट्स डिस्ट्रॉय किए गए, कोशिश की गई। और May 9th में भी स्टेट एसेट्स डिस्ट्रॉय करने की कोशिश की गई, कि कुछ बुरी तरह हुए भी, state/military, wink. तो ये देखो पैरेलल्स, पैरेलल्स इट मींस कि जो 1/6 में हो रहा है वो 1/6 के यू नो 1/6 के जो करने वाले थे, करता धरता थे, जो प्रोटेस्टर्स थे, उनके साथ जो यहाँ पर यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स में हो रहा है, दैट्स अ ब्लूप्रिंट फॉर व्हाट पाकिस्तान शुड डू विद द प्रोटेस्टर्स इन देयर कंट्री। अगेन यहाँ तक अगर हम बात करके आगे निकल जाएं तो ठीक है, you know you can draw parallels and you'll be like, yeah, great, fine, fantastic. But again, nuance is missing. What was happening on January 6th में? And again, so अफसोस सबसे ज़्यादा मुझे जो अफसोस भी नहीं, I think अफसोस is a very strong word. I don't really feel sad about it, no. Frustration, anger, you know, blood pressure boiling, blood boiling, punch him in the face, scenario happens when I hear these arguments from people who have been or are living here, who have access to news and information about what happened on January 6th. The likes of Razarumi, the likes of, Faraz Darwish, he's been on my podcast. And again, he's been screaming, through the lungs about what's happened on May 9th. Completely disagree with that. But um, the frustrating part is that they keep saying that when they have access to this information, they have access to the same information that I have, and they could have reached the same conclusion that I'm about to reach, and say, no, actually, you know what, there is difference. You can come up with another angle and say, okay, why May 9th protesters are terrorists and anti-state, whatever the fuck that they want to say. But this angle, fuck no, this angle does not work at all. The January 6th, what was happening on January 6th? January 6th was the day when the state legislatures are going to ratify and validate the election results in favor of Joe Biden and say Joe Biden is the rightfully selected president and elected president. And और एक समझ लो कि एक पेपर वर्क टाइप का एक वोट होता है, everyone votes on it and that's it. Donald Trump gives a heads a rally the same day and says, this is what they're going to do. Once they ratify, I'm out. I'm done. Joe Biden's going to be president. Therefore, he incites them and suggests that, under, the U.S. laws and regulations, what happens is that if the vice president has, I don't know, some weird thing, vice president has the power to nullify those things and say, you know what, I'm not accepting these certifications by the states, and he sends back for a revote or something, you know. So they were pressurizing um, vice president Konta, Mike Pence at the time, to do that in favor of in favor of Donald Trump. और उस प्रेशर को क्रिएट करने के लिए ये पूरा जत्था जमा हुआ, and they riled up, with you know ammunitions and sticks and whatever they could find, घुस गए और हर लेजिस्लेटर को पकड़ रहे हैं, रिप्रेजेंटेटिव को पकड़ने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, just to pressurize them into voting no and saying keep Donald Trump in power. This is what was in a very nutshell, high level nutshell, was happening on January 6th. Let's go to see what was happening on May 9th. May 9th ko ex-Prime Minister Imran Khan gets arrested for, again, some fucked up cases. And he gets taken away by the Rangers, which was later, I think a couple of days later, was quashed by the Supreme Court being illegal, because they couldn't have taken away him like that, but he did. He's taken away by Rangers. After that, protests, as you would do, protests start hoti hain. People go, because the only uh, opponent in all of this was the army. They didn't go outside PMLN's house or unka secretariat or whatever, like PVP ka secretariat or unka. They went and attacked as in, I'm saying attacked, very lightly here, because they're not like these militant goons that we saw on January 6th, but with sticks and fires, and burned certain buildings down. Again, do I support it? No. But May 6th, May 9th happened as a reaction to some political arrest. January 6th was a planned way attempt to overthrow the government, which was going to start, which was Joe Biden's government, which was going to happen in the next couple of months or weeks. Zameen Asman ka fark hai. Zameen और आसमान का फर्क है, if I'm being very honest here. But yet, these psychos, would have you believe कि ये सब दोनों चीजें same है. Why? Because they would stand up and they would stick with the high level analysis and call themselves fucking analysts when they're not even like, they're jokes. That's what they're. I'm glad that they haven't quit their day jobs, because if they had, they would be fucking rotting on the roads, because they're good for nothing with their analysis. Um, so um, they have you believe this because they stick with the high level analysis and they say, yeah, देखो yeah, match कर रहा है, दोनों चीजें match करेंगे, therefore हाँ. ओ भाई, थोड़ा सा अगर आप डीप जाओगे, थोड़ा सा अगर आप इन्वेस्टिगेट करोगे, थोड़ा सा अपनी जो सो कॉल्ड आपके अंदर अगर जर्नलिस्टिक वैल्यूज हैं उनको अप्लाई करोगे, तो आपको पता लगेगा कि यार ये दोनों चीज़ें डिफरेंट है, हमें किसी और एंगल से मे बी एक पैरेलल ड्रॉ करना चाहिए, दिस एंगल डज नॉट वर्क. तो इसी के ऊपर मे 9th के ऊपर मैंने एक underlying, without getting too political, मैंने podcast record किया था, which was about protests and the viability of it and whether there should be protests and और ये सब चीजें. If anyone's interested in what I feel about the protests in May 9th, can listen to that podcast, and I've been very clear, and without naming names and shaming shame, what I feel about protest. But what I'll say about May 9th is this. Um, should it happen? Yes, protests should happen. Public properties को डैमेज किया जाना चाहिए? Again, ये सवाल मैंने उस पॉडकास्ट में भी पूछा है अपने आप से. Just a solo one, that one, so you should check that one out. A last point before I end the podcast, I think on May 9th, about again, प्रिंसिपल्स, और मुझे बात कर रहा था कि यार 101 कि मुझे उससे इंगेज करने में मज़ा आता है जिसके प्रिंसिपल्स थोड़े से रूटेड हो, तो मुझे पता लगे हाँ भाई इसके ये प्रिंसिपल्स हैं, तो मैं इससे इस लेवल पे बात कर सकता हूँ. The biggest adversaries or opponents of what happened on May 9th are कि जो biggest argument वो होता है कि भाई ये जलाओ घराओ और ये हमारी स्टेट प्रॉपर्टीज थी, जिना हाउस, fuck that and all that, ये सब चीज़ें जला दी इन्होंने, these are state anti-state people and they're terrorists and whatnot. um से अगर अगर ये outrage की वजह, if you really you know dig deep here, the outrage की वजह है कि public properties को नुकसान पहुंचाया, state properties को नुकसान पहुंचाया, तो हमारी feelings hurt हुई हैं, तो therefore this should not happen and these guys are bad. ठीक है. uh, December 27th, not so far away for where we are right now, December 27th, 2007, 14 years now, uh, like 13 years, 14 years, those are 24 के एंड में हो जाएंगे. When Benazir Bhutto died, Karachi was on fire. There were plenty of factories that were burnt. There were plenty of private properties, public properties, private properties, buses jalni hai, rickshaw jal rahe hain, were burned to the fucking ground. Whole Sindh was burning. और ये जो पीपीपी के प्रोपोनेंट्स हैं ये आके इस एग्जांपल को बहुत प्राउडली यूज करते हैं, कहते हैं कि ये सब हो रहा था और देन हेंस केम फॉरवर्ड द सुपरमैन in Asif Ali Zadi and said Pakistan ka pe, and then everything stopped. Well, okay, so it means they admitted कि सब चीजें हो रही थी. Sindh was on fucking fire. तो वो अगर वो प्रॉपर्टीज बर्न हुई हैं तो क्या वो आउटरेज, सेम आउटरेज, द क्वेश्चन इज द क्या सेम आउटरेज उस वक्त निकला था फॉर दोज प्रॉपर्टीज, बिकॉज आपके लिए प्रॉपर्टीज इतनी अहम है एंड पीपल आर आल्सो इम्पोर्टेंट? नो, नो. It was just like, yeah, these guys are just mad, that leader मर गया, whatever to get. तो that's the problem. कि यही सेम लोग जो मे 9th पे आउटरेज होते हैं, they have no fucking guilt or no fucking opinion on December 27th. They don't care about it. They just don't. Um, तो certain properties are obviously more important than others. तो it means कि आप अपने उस principle पे भी stand नहीं करते. Anyway, so as you can see, there's a lot of what I tried to communicate here, which most of it out of frustration, most of it out of just I'm just pissed off. Um, but ये चीजें हो रही हैं, especially on X, and social media is full of it. But yeah, this is what it is. This is I would say I've tried to summarize what I feel about what's been happening in Pakistan without going into the details, But yeah, if there's one word I would like you guys to take away from this is nuance, context. Maybe a couple of words. Nuance and context. हर चीज का context और nuance होना जरूरी है. थोड़ा सा उस पर शायबा, थोड़ी सी मेहनत करें. Spend some time reading something and trying to analyze this. If I can, in a dumb mind like me, can do it, I'm sure an average person can do it too. I'm not even average, below average in these things. But if I can try and really struggle, do this, anybody can do it. Not to say the least, these fucking self-proclaimed analysts. But anyway, those are bad faith actors, and I've already said that. Anyway, subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, follow us on Instagram and Spotify, Apple Music, and Amazon, and a bunch of other stuff. Link is in the description. I will see you guys with another one. Thanks.